Hi everyone, it's Dom from the MS Guide again. Thanks very much for joining us. Today we've got a guest, a friend of mine who I know from a long time back. We used to cycle together, but he's also an MS nurse, or he was, and he has a family connection to MS because his mum has MS. And what we're going to do today is two guys, and we're going to talk about sexual health because nobody likes to cover these topics, but that's what we're going to do. His name is Jonny, and we're going to start the interview for you now. Hi, Jonny. How are you doing?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Dom. Thanks for having me on today.
It's my pleasure. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a long background in the world of neurology. I worked at the John Radcliffe Hospital for many years in different neurological roles, but my passion was always multiple sclerosis. Looked after a chap when I was a healthcare assistant before I'd even done my nurse training, and kind of inspired me to want to work with people who were living with MS. And yeah, that led to me being applying for a job at the old Radcliffe Infirmary that I didn't get at that point. But then a year later, I got a job in MS with the MS clinic, and I had a good few years very happy years working in the MS clinic in Oxford. And that kind of led me on actually to looking at other autoimmune neurological conditions. And I've spent the last more recent kind of years looking at things like autoimmune encephalitis and another condition that looks a lot like multiple sclerosis called neuromyelitis optica, which I worked with some of the top MS researchers, yeah, so that's been my kind of clinical background. And I also I'm up in Scotland now lecturing in nursing as well.
Okay, it's I should say, Jonny and I met one another not through MS but through the cycle club. So
We did.
Jonny's quite the cyclist, everybody. Anyway, but let's put that as far better than I ever was or will be. Yeah. Anyhow, Jonny, we're here. We're going to talk about sexual health with men, and what's the main issues that you found you came across?
I'll tell you, the biggest by far isn't the physical issues themselves. It's the having the space to talk about it and to acknowledge that it's something that people are going through, because actually we all know the kind of macho kind of male persona is that we don't talk about these things, and we either kind of live with it and accept that it is what it is, or we might do a little bit of digging ourselves and see what we can find out, and we may end up with some misinformation. We were talking before the show went on air that misinformation in MS especially is rife. It can be anywhere, and I think by far and away the biggest role I always saw that I had as an MS nurse, especially when I was talking about continence, which was always a good lead in. The concept being that if you have a problem with something in your continence, either your bowels or your bladder or both, you're very likely to have some form of sexual dysfunction. And in men, the link is, the evidence shows us that that's pretty common. So that gave me a way in, and often I was by myself in clinic. I ran that clinic alone, and I think being man to man talking about these things was actually quite a good environment. And
well, many guys like talking to another guy, don't they? I mean, men can't get an erection, and therefore the whole thing sort of goes downhill from there, shall we say? But is there more to it than that with sex and men and intimacy and talking about it? I mean, what did you run into?
I think there's a complex relationship with sexual function in people who are living with MS, and as much as the physical is, we know why the pathways aren't working potentially in the way they should be, and we know how important that side of things is, but there's huge links if you take MS out of the equation and think of some of the things that people live with MS, so if you talk about things like anxiety and depression, for example, if you talk about continence, so continence, not just the actual ability to control your continence, but what the effects of incontinence might be, embarrassment, lack of wanting intimacy, things like this. There's this complex mix of things that happens that potentially leads not only to the physical effects of, the nerves aren't working maybe as well as they were, but the confidence aspect, which would happen in any person, regardless of how well their nerves are working, can have a huge impact on things like you're saying there. So, getting and maintaining an erection, and libido and things like that as well. So it's a very complicated picture. And I think it's about, going back to that first point I made, it's just about having a space to talk about it sometimes that will break that first barrier down to allow it to flow into some kind of discussion around how you can move forward.
So what I'm hearing is it's almost more psychological than anything else, because you create that space when it's another bloke and you're sitting there and you have the time to talk about it and you can lead in through continency, but the issues aren't so much physical because you can cure that with a pill, broadly speaking. But it's all the mental aspects of it. It's the not being able to talk about it, not being able to talk about it with your partner, I presume. That often troubles.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole aspect of being able to have conversations with your nurse or or whoever it might be that you work with clinically, somebody who's there to provide you with healthcare advice. Commonly in the UK, that's an MS nurse, but also, like you said, the intimate relationships that you have, especially for things like forming new relationships, and knowing when is an appropriate time to talk about these things, and what might be the issues, and whether you're confident to be able to tell that person before you get into that intimate relationship.
I see it pop up on one of the forums I look at a lot is Shift MS, and it's different versions of the same question broadly around dating and relationships, and when do I tell somebody I have MS, and should I even get into a relationship? And you realize there's this vast amount of anxiety about what if.
The other aspect that I think is worth noting is is away from the kind of making sure the equipment works, if you like. So things like spasticity and pain, mobility, sensation.
If you're mid liaison, shall we say, and you get hit with a stab of pain,
exactly,
it can ruin the mood.
Yeah, I can well imagine, and I always remember talking to a chap who had terrible leg spasms, and he just was so embarrassed about, that he used to tell me he could only have sex in two positions because any other position would almost guarantee his legs would go into spasm.
MS being a disabling disease, ultimately, frankly, having sex can be a fairly vigorous activity. And I think people, we all joke about it and laugh, but all of a sudden you've gone from maybe not being that physically active to wanting to be a great deal more physically active, and then you run into problems. I mean, what about, do you ever come across men who can't achieve orgasm?
So there's definitely been back in the day when I was, like I say, when I was kind of running that clinic, there were people who. And again, this is not a piece of information that was commonly volunteered. So you have to be a bit specific and ask people, can you gain and maintain an erection? And the other big question was, can you reach an orgasm? And sometimes it was yes to part one and no to part two. So and that has a big impact on forming close relations, doesn't it? That kind of and the impact on maybe the way that we perceive our sexual capabilities and things like that. So that has a huge impact on psychology, therefore, your ability to form those close relations with the person that you're having sex with. So if you've got areas of poor sensation, is it, where does feel things better, and where do things feel better and things like that. So we definitely talked about that. I couldn't tell you my success rates from clinic for that one, but it's good to talk about it though, and for people to acknowledge as well that happens, and them saying actually yes, but I didn't think, I wasn't sure if that was anything to do with this, and me being able to reassure someone it's almost just as important, because it might just allow them that space to okay, I can reset my brain on this.
There's a couple things here. One, I mean, you worked at the hospital I was treated at, that we never bumped into one another.
Yes.
I was never, ever asked anything, zero, about sexual function ever. And I'm guessing it's because female nurses, maybe. I mean, I can imagine if you're a female nurse and a male patient, that's got to be difficult in and of itself. And the whole British attitude to sex broadly.
Yeah.
It's something that, how did we all get here? But let's not talk about it.
And like you said, sometimes the medications that we get put on can have huge impact. The impact on libido from antidepressants can be massive. So you can treat the depression that someone's experiencing, but that might have quite a knock-on effect on libido. And
As in, it kills libido.
It can, yeah, it can. Medications can impact the way that we feel the world around us.
Especially when you start stacking medication. This whole concept.
Yeah, polypharmacy.
Polypharmacy. Took the words out of my mouth. Medication B doesn't play well with medication D, but you put onto them slowly over time. And I always think sometimes you need a pharmacist just come along and rummage through your stuff and go, you might want to approach this differently. But that's the medicating. Then you have to choose between what's more important. Let's say it's spasticity or sex. I'm 52, so I'm not that old, but I do remember I had a professor and he was 70. And I suppose it's something I have to look forward to. But he said, when you lose your libido, it's like being unchained from a lunatic. Well, to go, so it's an issue I have to deal with. But given that there's a huge psychological element to this, as a nurse, and you manage to engage somebody in clinic and they talk about this and you both realize there's an issue, what treatments can you maybe referral to some sort of psychology service? I don't know, is how could you help improve it, or how can the patient help improve it?
Yeah, so I think we talk about psychological therapies, so giving and sexual counseling can be, sex therapist type work can be quite helpful, where they can talk specifically about the problems they're living with. I think people sometimes struggle with getting their head around things like you were talking about medication earlier on, and how to get onto that. And I think 10 years ago when I was dealing with this, it was actually quite hard to get hold of that little blue pill that you're talking about. And now it's a lot easier. Now, bear in mind that isn't, that is definitely, I'm not saying that that's the answer to everybody's problem. It depends a little bit about what the problem is and whatever else. But the biggest part by far for me was always encouraging people to talk to the people that mattered to them about it, that they felt, so that they could consider how to move forward, regardless of what the specific advice is. That is by far and away the most important thing. And also, as I said earlier on, I think if there's not a lot of point in treating somebody medically for an inability to gain an erection if they are suffering with a huge amount of other symptoms that might prohibit them from being able to, because you need to treat it as we talk about holistic care in nursing practice. There's no point in treating just one aspect of things. We need to think about all aspects, and all physical and all kind of psychological aspects as well. So
the squeaky wheel gets you oil. You've got to put yourself forward. Things like this will not happen unless you bring it up a lot of the time. I mean, it was never brought up with me.
It's about making sure that people have a space that they can tell you what is going on with them and that they want fixing or that they want some help with, even if they don't necessarily know it at the start of the consultation. You feel a bit like Columbo or someone like that. You just one more question. It's always just one more question, but it's important that like you said, it's a two-way street, and part of that is getting rapport and therapy. I know that your MS nurse incredibly well, and that you guys have have a long history and have known each other really, really well for a long time. And that has a huge benefit a lot of the time, because it means that you'd be able to ask that person things that you'd be able to talk about things with that person that potentially you wouldn't be if you had somebody different every time you went in.
Yeah. I think it's the relationships, and you, the patient, investing in the relationship as much as it's not all one way, because you will get a lot out of it if you essentially get on with somebody. I mean, and you're not going to get on with everybody. But anyway, Jonny, we can go round and round. This is we're into the sort of mechanistic parts of patient clinician relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
I really, really appreciate your time and coming on the MS Guide to talk about this, because it's not the easiest topic, I think, for anybody, as you said, but it's I look forward to speaking to you again. Maybe one day we'll go out for a ride. But since you're in Scotland and I'm in Oxford, that's not going to happen in a hurry. So, hey, you take care, Jonny. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.